and welcome. Thank you for tuning in to the Property Guide. I'm Faye D'Souza. This is a very, very special episode. We've turned 75 this week. This is our 75th episode. It makes us really proud when we look at our inbox and look at all of the support that you've given us over the last 75 weeks. We thank you for that support and we look forward to more of it in the years to come. Now, we've had some of the strongest guests in the property market on this show, giving us advice on how to buy, how to sell, and how to invest in property in this country. So I want to start this episode with a quick recap of the strongest advice we've received. Now, I'm going to give you a second so you can pick up pen and paper, because this really is a really impressive pack of people and the advice is extremely useful. So write it down, and of course, if you have a question, feel free to get in touch. Take a look.
If you have a high ticket value investment, Bandra East, close to Bandra Kurla complex, is probably one of the best spots in Mumbai city to invest, which pre-launch is around 27,000 rupees square feet at built-up area. We expect rates to go to 35 to 40,000 rupees square foot.
I particularly like three pockets of Bangalore for high growth. One is the northern precinct, when you say Hennur Road or Tanisandra Road and those belts. Those are definitely very good locations. Down south, again, Electronic City, Whitefield are good areas.
The government has already announced that there are going to be commercial complexes in these new areas, and Narela, Bhavana, Rohini and Dwarka have been identified as the next target areas which are going to see high intensity growth.
I would look at two neighborhoods for Pune. One is the Hinjawadi corridor, which is the western suburbs, and the other is the Nagar Road corridor. Both are driven by IT, but they don't really depend on IT that much because the feeder industry is also well supported there.
If you are an investor who's willing to invest and then wait for 5 years, I think this is one of the good times in Chennai. And I would actually cherry pick some of the locations. So Pallavaram, Thorai-Pakkam Road, to me, is my choice number one.
I would advise ECR, Omar and Thorai-Pakkam Pallavaram Road. In terms of what stage one should invest in as an investor, I would suggest that you look at a project which is already got approvals, where constructions are happening and it's somewhere midway through.
Restrict yourselves to locations which are already established in the central, the Navrangpuras of the world, and in the western suburbs of Ahmedabad. In terms of location in the west, we have Vastrapur, Satellite and Thaltej, among others, that will keep doing well.
Unlike government land, which is very well demarcated and very well defined in a setup, the problem occurs with the boundaries and the edges. Then there are ownership issues are there. So suppose if you are buying it from a private person, it may be like it is an inherited property and there are lots of other claimants to that same property, so which might take you to disputes. Also, there are land falls into different kind of zoning.
If you're buying from a private developer and you want to ensure that your property is safe, please get the land titles checked for at least the last 30 years. Disputes can arise over the last 30-year period.
Bangalore Northern Corridor, particularly close to the airport, a lot of questions will be raised whether it's actually doing very well. People have exited from there, but even now, that is one of my hot favorites.
Welcome back. You're watching Property Guide and ET now. Thank you so much for staying with us. We have two wonderful guests in the studio right now with the simple aim to answer as many questions of yours as we possibly can. Now, Jayashree Kurup, Head of Content and Research at magicbricks.com, joins us from her office in the NCR region. Jayashree, thank you so much for joining us. And Arvind Nandan, independent analyst. The both of them have been helping us over the last 75 weeks to answer your questions, which is why we brought them in on this very special show. I want to get straight to it. Our first question, and the reason why we've picked this is because it's indicative of a lot of the questions in our inbox, and this is a question a lot of you have right now. Ramnik Singh has written in. He wants to invest 20 or 30 lakh rupees in property in either the Delhi NCR region for a short period. He says, but he's very confused because the bank is also giving him a really interesting interest rate on this amount. He says, would it be profitable to invest in property right now, or should I just put it in a bank fixed deposit? If in property, he says, which area of the Delhi NCR NCR region should I consider? So the larger question here is, if my bank FD interest rate is 8.5% at this point, in some cases it's 9%, Arvind, will I get more than that from residential property?
That's a very interesting question, and I think you made it further interesting, simply because you put the FDI rates in perspective. I have two different approaches to this question. Number one is, what kind of an investor are you? If you are an investor who's wanting to put 20 or 30 lakhs there for 2-3 years and then make your money, I think it's best not to do that. Unless you are an investor who's really for the longer term, which means 5-7 years or so, there's no point investing 20-30 lakhs like this, because like you rightly said, if you put it in FD or some better avenues, you're probably going to do better.
See, I'm going to push that point with you a little bit. You said if you're willing to say for the longer term of about 10 years. If I'm looking at 10 years, then what sort of return are you expecting on
All right. In that case, of course, it's very difficult to predict for 10 years. But one can very well say that on an annualized basis, you'll still be looking at making about 10-15% in 7-8 years' time, which is a healthy return, which is a good return. Currently, the problem is there's a liquidity crisis in the NCR market. So there is stock, resale stock, fresh stock, all of that sitting there. Not too many transactions happening in every quadrant of the market. So you are definitely in a position where if you buy something, it's not going to start climbing in terms of appreciation. So it's very clear. If you're a short-term investor who wants to make quick money, there's not the market for you. That's my view.
Not the market. If I were to ask you for the next 3 or 4 years, we know there was a report that came out from Knight Frank that said not more than 5%. But from your point of view, residential property, Delhi NCR, 3 or 4 years, what's the annualized return?
3 or 4 years. Well, that will be about
5%?
5-7% or so.
5-7%.
Unless you are a long-term player, you'll have to play for that.
Right. One of the yardsticks to decide would be the time horizon. Arvind, they're telling us that we shouldn't be considering real estate for anything less than 10 years. But the other thing that worries me about this question is the ticket size. What will 20 or 30 lakh rupees buy in the NCR region? And should I be then using the ticket size also as a yardstick to decide? Because if I don't have anything, say, less than 50 lakh rupees, should I be looking at a bank deposit? Is that how you'd advise we make this decision?
Absolutely, Faye. We did a spot check on our site, and we found you can either get it in Uttam Nagar, where you will have to check out whether the legality of the property is in place. If you look at Noida Extension, Faridabad, these are areas where you're not going to be able to turn around your property in 2 to 3 years, or even up to 5 years. I don't see huge profits being booked. These are peripheral areas. These are areas where otherwise the property values have not risen. Maybe an external factor is required to drive up the property values. So with a ticket size like this, it makes much more sense to invest in other types of investment, maybe the stock markets or bank deposits or things like that. But there is one more thing that you could consider. If you have a 20 to 30 lakh budget today, and if you want to enter the property market, buy into a property that is being freshly launched in a new area, you're paying about 10-20%, and then there are a lot of subvention schemes where you don't have to pay till possession. That is roughly 4 to 5 years. Use this period to keep your money, keep your proposed EMI aside, and put that into a systematic investment plan. As the money grows, when you have to actually take possession of your property, you are actually putting down the principal, and your EMI becomes smaller, and you have a higher affordability. But you still won't be able to flip your property in 2 to 3 years. That's way too short a time horizon for any kind of innovative plans.
All right, the third thing to consider, of course, remember we talked about time horizon and we talked about ticket size. The third thing to consider is risk. Now, there's an obvious assumption that when you get into a fixed deposit, there's no risk at all involved, but there is the risk of inflation where the value of your money will come down, not so much over 2 or 3 years. So, Arvind, I want to bring you in. If we take Jayashree's idea a little further of getting in on a subvention scheme at the pre-launch phase, what sort of risk would I be taking on as an investor at that point?
You have to very clearly understand the situation that you will be buying for this kind of a ticket size in those markets which are not very heavily active markets these days. So you could probably still go to Faridabad and maybe deep inside Faridabad going right to Palwal. Or you could go further ahead of Bhiwadi. Even Bhiwadi is now 30-35. Or you may want to try your luck in Kundli. So look at the markets, look at individual streets and localities within that very carefully. But first you need to know yourself. If you are somebody who definitely wants to buy property for a temporary purpose and then make money there, you are a different investor. If you are somebody who's just wanting to park your money somewhere so that it grows, then you are not the investor who will go into this.
Another marked risk that needs to be looked at, Jayashree, is that this is the risk of liquidity. Now, even if I hold it for 5 or for 10 years, there's the whole question of whether or not I'll be able to find a buyer at the end to buy that property. That risk does not, of course, exist with a fixed deposit. What would you recommend an investor like this do when they're trying to consider whether or not they want to make this decision?
The first thing that you should consider is there future economic potential. For instance, let's take Kundli, for instance. Today, Kundli is a very, it's low down in priority list. But there is a huge education city coming up in Kundli. Once that takes off, and check out who are the people who have invested, what is the state of the investments, and if that is going to come up in 4 to 5 years, there's no reason why you should not consider Kundli. So, you see, you should look at the current price of the property and its future potential. There may be drivers like infrastructure, economic hubs and things like that. Those are local drivers which will drive up the price of the property, but you should be able to read that very carefully. It's good to do a lot of research, especially when you have a small budget.
All right, so here's the gist of what we're saying. You have to have at least 10 years as an investor if you're going to consider property. You have to have 50 lakhs or more than that if you're going to consider property. Or you limit your choices and be forced to buy something that might not be ideal. Consider the risks, of course, that come with a deal like this. And finally, like Jayashree said, consider the economic indicators of the neighborhood that you're buying as well, because it's important to find someone to buy that when you're willing to sell. And of course, if you need any more help, you can get in touch with us. We have another question from Sachin, who's written in. He's looking to buy a 3-bedroom villa or apartment in Pune or in Ahmedabad, where school, college and other facilities are nearby or well connected. A budget of 1 crore rupees. Please help me decide, he says. So he's obviously looking for something to live in. It's it's rare that an end user writes giving us an option of choices of cities, because normally end users know where they want to live. If I were to ask you to choose purely on the concept of development and capital appreciation going forward, would you choose Pune or Ahmedabad at this point?
Now, let's say if you are somebody who wants to have a property to use immediately and maybe, leave it for your next generation or something, then I would say probably go for Pune, because things are more well set there. You are probably living in a place which is heavily connected with the capital of the business capital of the country, and which has got a lot of promise in itself. But if you are somebody who's just wanting to park your money, buy something which will be used probably a generation later, or you may want to sell it later, go for Ahmedabad, because the entry points or entry prices are pretty attractive, more attractive as compared to Ahmedabad. If you want to look at the locations, there are several. You could look at Magarpatta city, you could look at Wakad, Pimpri Chinchwad, Ravet. There are several. And likewise in Ahmedabad, there is Satellite, there is Prahlad Nagar, there is Bhopal, and we can name another dozen or so. But the first thing is to know what you want to do, why you're doing such a thing. And after that, you can probably choose your things.
All right, so consider your requirements, and of course, while you're making that choice, we'll be right here to help you through it. Jayashree, before we go into break, I'm going to very quickly ask you this. We have a brand new Chief Minister now in Delhi. I'm not going to ask you about your political convictions, but I'm sure you've done some sort of, preliminary estimation of what this means for the real estate market in the NCR. Could you tell us what you found so far?
The NCR market is in a churn right now, and especially in the election results are going to point to, there will be policy initiatives that can take place in the Delhi NCT, the National Capital Territory of Delhi, which is where Arvind Kejriwal has won by a thumping majority. Now, look at the ground reality there. We've got a new master plan just waiting to take off. There is a lot of redevelopment, the L zone, the R zone and so on. So you're going to see a lot of land being freed up for development. There has been an estimation of how much land, 14,000 hectares or so, that DDA holds, which is going to be opened up for development. You've seen DDA already putting 25,000 apartments into the city. There is structured redevelopment happening in areas along the metro corridors like Moti Bagh, Kidwai Nagar and so on, land that the government owns where there is structured redevelopment. So if you ask me, it is easier to push through some amount of policies, and that is good for the market. I expect that this kind of majority is going to take the sentiment, the housing sentiment right through the roof.
All right, housing sentiment right through the roof. Something to look forward to. I know you have something to add.
Yeah, I mean, she's highlighted pretty much everything, but there are two things that the new government in Delhi may want to clearly keep in view. One is, like we discussed earlier, capital is right now locked in Delhi. So although there is stock, not too much capital is getting released in Delhi. And that, in turn, is related to a sentiment which pushes up the demand. I think the primary objective has to be to whip up the demand again and give people that confidence that whatever you invest today is not going to go bad or not going to go downhill in 2 or 3 years' time. I think if they did that, they would have done the first basic thing, and that's all that's needed right now.
Welcome back. You're watching the Property Guide in ET now. Thank you for staying with us. We're trying to answer as many questions as we can this week. Hitesh has written in. He's an NRI based in Africa. He holds 2 flats in Mulund, a 2 BHK in Neelam Nagar, he tells us, and a 3-bedroom in Lok Everest project. He says the valuation of these 2 properties have doubled within the last 4 years. It's always nice to hear that. He wants to know now if he should sell the projects and invest in the stock market or shift to commercial property within Mulund. Jayashree, another very interesting question. Obviously, the view on the stock market is very, very positive if you have a 5-year horizon at least. I wouldn't recommend doing something short-term in the stock market right now. But it's not as easy to find a buyer for a second sale in any of our cities right now. Would you recommend he cashes out of investments that are doing so well for him?
No, I think he should hold. It's way too early to exit this investment. Let the property market stabilize. Let the property market start climbing. And yes, it is a good time to enter the stock market, but not by encashing what you have in the property markets, because you are going to get much better returns out of this same investment in, say, 7-8 months. So that is the time to consider. Keep a watch on your property markets. Keep a watch on your own investment and track how it's doing. You have 2 properties. Are you actually getting regular returns out of it? If you're getting regular rental returns, a good option would be to start putting your rental returns into the stock market, because the stock markets are doing well and are expected to do well for at least another 2.5 years. That way, and any rise in the stock market is on a systematic investment. So start taking your rental returns, putting it into the stock market, exit your property investment only when the property markets have actually gone up.
All right, and the other important thing to consider is that since we've already had a muted market for the last 2 or 3 years, the fact that your investment has done well means that you have picked it well. There's no real, point in cashing out of it at this point. A very interesting question. Mukesh Gupta has written in. He tells us he has land near Lucknow in Indiranagar purchased from a farmer. He says it's been about 6 years and 2 months since he bought it, and the money has gone up 5 times. He wants to know, since there's no real development happening there, if he should hold on to that investment, or would you recommend he sells?
Yeah, I think what he said is perfectly all right. Indiranagar is a place which is pretty much like Aliganj, and Aliganj started developing about 25 years ago. Now it's come to a full bloom. Indiranagar is also like that. At the same time, it also abuts Gomti Nagar, which is another very high-profile location. Plus, you are on the Faizabad Road, which is a very high development corridor right now. Of course, you are right that there's not too much happening in terms of a very radical development taking place there. But that will happen in due course, because if you are closer to Hyderabad, Faizabad Road, then you're definitely going to see that. I would say be patient with that. Stay put there.
All right, so stay put, don't sell. And let's take another question. Girish Sam has written in. He wants to buy a 3-bedroom home in Hyderabad with a budget of 50 lakh rupees. Interested in PBEL City. Please suggest if there are better options and how much appreciation can be expected over the next 5 years. Hyderabad's a bit of a gamble right now. Jayashree, would you recommend he go ahead with the apartment that he's shortlisted?
He's talking about Upper Junction. In Upper Junction, we see that the locality has a fair amount of credibility. It has a above 4.8 score that consumers have given the locality. PBL project itself has been doing well, and there's no problem with this particular investment. But don't be in a hurry to flip your money. I think he's picked up the right locality, he's picked up the right project. Now what he needs to do is be patient. He's done his research well, he's done his homework well, and I think he is on the right track.
All right, so this is for everybody watching at home right now who's considering whether or not you should be selling real estate. It really isn't the market to sell. We're in the middle of a downward cycle, so we're going to have to wait for this market to pick up, for demand to come back, for the buyers to sort of open their wallets and say, okay, we're going to start buying it. You ideally should wait for that time. And if you want to know how you're going to find out that time has come, you'll find out on this show. So keep watching the show. I'm going to quickly take one last question. Surajit has written in. He lives in Kolkata. He says in the Dum Dum area near the airport. I always love saying that. He's been living there for the last 10 years in a rented home. He now wants to buy his own home with a budget of 20 to 25 lakh rupees. Please give me some good locations. He says, what can 22 lakh rupees buy in Kolkata?
The first thing is keep the whole arc starting from Toliganj in south right up to Baranagar in the northern area. Go via the Rajarhat, EM bypass corridors and check. There are multiple, dozens of projects which will be there. Yeah, if you are going to be closer to 25 than 20, it's going to be slightly easier for you because most of the projects are just out of the 23-24 lakh range. The other thing is you will have to choose your location right first. Don't look for a property which is somehow fitting in within your budget and giving you a 2 BHK instead of a 1 BHK and take that. Unless your location is right, your investment may not grow and you will probably be sitting on something where it will just not give you anything that you wanted from it. Plenty
of options for you in Kolkata, for all of you across the country actually. Feel free to write in if you want advice about buying or selling property. That's a wrap on the Property Guide. Jayashree and Arvind, thank you so much for spending time with us this week. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can reach us on Twitter, on Facebook and on email. Feel free to get in touch. It'll be our pleasure to hear from you.